Brett invested a certain amount of money for 1 year and earned $72 in interest. Aaron invested $240 more than Brett at an interest rate that was 5/6 of the rate given to Brett, but she earned the same amount of interest. Find the principal and the interest rate for Brett's investment. When we have a problem dealing with money, we can often organize our information with a chart, and in that chart the columns would be interest, principal, rate, and time, because interest equals principal times rate times time. In this situation we have two investments. We have two investors actually, Brett and Aaron. And I want to know the information for Brett, so I'll define his variables first here. He earned $72 in interest, and we'll let the principal be P and the rate be R because we don't know either of those. And it was invested for 1 year, so T would be 1. Aaron earned $72 in interest because she earned the same amount that Brett did. She also invested it for 1 year. But instead of using another variable for her principal, let's write it in terms of P. She invested $240 more, so she invested P plus $240. Her interest rate was 5/6 that of Brett's, so we can write that as 5/6 R. Now, since interest equals principal times rate times time, we can go right along the rows of this table and come up with some equations. Along the first row we have 72 equals principal times rate times 1, which you don't have to write. And for Aaron's investment we have 72 equals P plus 240 times 5/6 R. Now this is a system of equations in two unknowns. The unknowns here are P and R. Let's take our first equation and solve it for R. We have R equals 72 over P. And then we replace R in the second equation with 72 over P. It'll look a little complicated at the beginning, but it'll simplify out nicely. 72 equals P plus 240 times 5/6 times 72 over P, where I'm replacing R. Now notice that this equation just has one unknown, and that is P, which would be the principal that Brett invested. Let's simplify, first of all, multiplying here. We have 72 equals P plus 240 times, if we multiply, we'll actually divide 72 by 6, which is 12, and multiply it by 5, we have 60 over P. Now what can we simplify next? Well, let's multiply P plus 240 times 60 over P. That gives us 72 equals P times 60 divided by P is 60. 240 times 60 is 14,400, and that's divided by P. Now we can subtract 60 from both sides, which gives us 12 equals 14,400 over P. Multiplying both sides by P and then dividing both sides by 12, we would have P equals 14,400 divided by 12, or 1,200. Now we have found that the principal that Brett invested was $1,200, so we've actually found one of the pieces of information we need. We also need to know the interest rate, which was R. We saw earlier that R was 72 divided by P, which would be 72 divided by 1,200, which is 0.06 or 6%. Now the question did not ask us to find what Aaron's rate was, so we're done. We can state then that Brett invested $1,200 at an interest rate of 6%.